Professional wrestling is one of the most unique performance arts and forms of entertainment of all time. Having been around for decades, wrestling has evolved and changed. Wrestlers today are stronger, faster, and capable of incredible feats that wrestlers from past generations could only dream of. And yet, the art that those wrestlers of past generations created lives on. Professional wrestling is a wonderful thing because at its core, it's storytelling, and that story can be told in endless ways. Because of this evolution, we have witnessed an ever-changing conversation where fans around the world have asked the question, who is the greatest of all time? Today, I am going to be answering that question. The GOAT Argument is a series where each episode I will be looking at a certain wrestler's entire career and body of work and telling you why they are the greatest of all time. It doesn't matter whether I believe it or not. I am putting my personal opinions aside and making an indisputable case for that wrestler in question. Besides, we all know who I think the actual GOAT is. Today, we are going to make the argument why Kurt Angle is the greatest professional wrestler of all time.
Oh, and by the way, Boehner Bronco Buster?
Yeah.
Where the hell did that come from?
Improv.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Debuting in the WWF in 1999, Kurt Angle was viewed as a massive signing for the company. Angle was not just a special athlete, he was a gold medalist, and the WWF wanted to treat him with all of the prestige someone of his athletic prowess deserved.
Making his World Wrestling Federation debut, the most celebrated real athlete in WWF history, Kurt Angle!
With Kurt's debut, the company quite literally buried the rest of the roster. I mean, when you call someone the only real athlete, what does that make everyone else on the roster? Surely the WWF didn't care and saw Kurt Angle as the next big thing. Burying the rest of the roster didn't even matter because they had a money-printing machine. Or did they? In just a matter of minutes, the WWF crowd turned on the Olympian. They didn't care that he was a real athlete. They didn't care that he was an Olympic hero. They thought he was boring. In professional wrestling, one bad moment can ruin a career. In this industry, a first impression is everything. Fans are quick to make up their minds, and once they do, it can be nearly impossible to change their perception. For many wrestlers, one misstep at the start can stain their entire career, or even worse, never let it truly begin. Take Terry Taylor, for example. Taylor was a talented wrestler with undeniable in-ring skills who had a great career up until his WWF debut, where he was given the gimmick of a literal rooster. He was a laughingstock. It didn't matter how great his career was up until that point. Most WWF fans didn't know him for his feuds against Buddy Landel and Ted DiBiase. They knew him as the guy who dressed up as a rooster. Despite his talent, he never recovered from that disastrous first impression, and his career never reached the heights it could have. Kurt Angle was dangerously close to joining the likes of Terry Taylor. His first match could have defined his career. The crowd didn't care about his accolades or his gold medals. They thought he was boring. And in wrestling, boring is the kiss of death. But this is where Kurt Angle's story takes a turn.
An Olympic gold medalist. What? You do not boo Olympic gold medalists. I'm the best in the world. I came here for you. You do not boo me.
Who does this? How many professional wrestlers, much less rookies, have the wherewithal to understand, okay, the crowd is not on my side, but I'm going to use that to my advantage? This short, mid-match promo basically defines Kurt Angle's entire career, and he understood that on night one. Unlike so many others, Kurt Angle didn't let a rocky start define him. Instead, he adapted. He leaned into the crowd's rejection, transforming their disdain into the foundation for one of the most incredible careers in wrestling history. And just like that, Kurt Angle had shown that he was worthy of a professional wrestling ring, showed he could handle adversity, and was immediately thrust into stardom. In just Angle's first year, he won the European Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, the King of the Ring tournament, and then the World Championship, becoming one of the fastest wrestlers in history to achieve this milestone. It was clear what the company thought of Kurt Angle, but what did the fans think? Well, the verdict was still out. You know, when someone is pushed so hard and so fast, there are always going to be fans who are a little hesitant to accept them. And this is when Kurt Angle showed that he had layers. Not only was he one of the best in-ring performers that the WWE had ever seen, he was also hilarious. This is what truly set Kurt Angle apart and won over the fans who might have been hesitant at first. Angle didn't just rely on his technical skills or his Olympic pedigree to get over. He leaned into comedy in a way that very few wrestlers ever have. He wasn't afraid to make himself look ridiculous, and that willingness to laugh at himself made him one of the most entertaining and endearing performers in WWE history. You know, Kurt Angle was the kind of heel you love to hate. He wasn't just a bad guy, he was a bad guy who thought he was better than you. And instead of alienating fans, it endeared them to him in the most unexpected way. What made Kurt Angle's comedy so brilliant is that it never took away from his credibility in the ring. You know, he could be singing with a tiny cowboy hat one week and then trying to murder Eddie Guerrero or Edge the next. Fans never doubted that underneath the goofy persona, Kurt Angle was a wrestling machine, capable of breaking anyone in half. That balance between being a comedic genius and a legitimate threat set Kurt Angle apart. He wasn't just funny for the sake of being funny, he used comedy as a tool to enhance his character and deepen his connection with the fans. Whether you were laughing at him or cheering for him, Kurt Angle always left you entertained. And that's what makes him truly special. In wrestling, it's rare to find someone who can do it all. Technical wrestling, storytelling, and comedy. But Kurt Angle, he could do it all, and he made it look easy. Despite all the phenomenal work and milestones Kurt Angle had, around 2006, he started to feel a little directionless. That, compelled with personal demons, led him to ask for his release, and the WWE granted it to him. When Kurt Angle left the WWE in 2006, many fans wondered if this was the end of his career. Personal struggles and injuries seemed to have taken their toll, and for some, it felt like the wrestling machine was finally breaking down. But Kurt Angle wasn't done, not even close. For many wrestlers, going from WWE to TNA would be seen as a step down, a signal that their best days were behind them. But for Kurt Angle, TNA became the perfect proving ground to remind everyone of just how special he was. What made Kurt Angle's time in TNA so remarkable wasn't just the quality of his matches, it was his ability to adapt to a completely new environment. In WWE, Angle had the benefit of being surrounded by the biggest stars in wrestling history. In TNA, he was stepping into a locker room of younger, hungrier talent, many of whom didn't have the global exposure that WWE offered. Angle didn't come in with a superior mindset, he elevated everyone around him. Names like Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Bobby Roode were known to hardcore wrestling fans, but for many, seeing them wrestle Kurt Angle was their first exposure, and they could not have asked for a better first impression. Sure, we had seen Kurt Angle have some of the best matches of all time already, whether against Brock Lesnar or Shawn Michaels, but we were seeing an entirely new side of Kurt Angle. We were seeing Perk Angle. Now, this is just a joke. Kurt Angle actually doesn't like the name Perk Angle, and I agree, it's in bad taste. Angle was quoted on an episode of the Broken Skull Session saying, "The thing that upsets me is people think that I was high when I was wrestling. I didn't get high when I was wrestling, I got high when I was done. So it wasn't Perk Angle that was out there, it was me." Behind the scenes, Kurt Angle was dealing with unimaginable pain. Years of intense physical competition, both as an Olympic wrestler and a professional wrestler, had taken a severe toll on his body. Coupled with his personal struggles, it's a miracle that Kurt was even able to step into the ring, let alone deliver the caliber of matches he was putting on. I've said it before, these videos are not supposed to be career retrospectives. I don't want to walk you down a list of great matches, but in Kurt Angle's case, I think it's necessary. We mentioned Kurt Angle vs. Shawn Michaels and Brock Lesnar, but what about No Mercy 2002? Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit wrestled Rey Mysterio and Edge, and they had one of the best tag team matches of all time, proving Kurt could adapt to any match type. King of the Ring 2001 against Shane McMahon, one of the most brutal matches of all time, proving that not only could Kurt work a hardcore style match, but he could also elevate someone with limited experience. The Undertaker, Stone Cold, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle wrestled everyone and gave them all some of the best matches of their career. No matter how much pain he was in, no matter how much his personal life was unraveling, Kurt Angle never let it show in his performances. In fact, it seemed like the more he hurt, the harder he pushed himself. It wasn't just about proving people wrong or silencing his critics. Kurt Angle had an almost obsessive desire to be the best, and that desire drove him to keep performing at a level that very few wrestlers have ever achieved. Kurt Angle's career is the story of a man who refused to let circumstances, setbacks, or even his own body dictate his legacy. From being booed in his debut to becoming one of the company's most beloved stars. From personal struggles to delivering some of the best matches of his career in TNA. Angle proved time and time again that he could adapt, overcome, and thrive. And that is why Kurt Angle is the greatest of all time.
I'm sorry.
You smell that? What is that?
What?
What's that smell?
A cologne?
No.
Opportunity.